Patience is the best remedy for every trouble, once Plato said. I think the saying applies quite well here. It was a long journey, basically 6 months, but it is finally completed. Welcome back everyone. Today is the second and last video of this Su-7 project, so let's go through the painting and the weathering process. As I said before in the first video, there are some interesting markings that come within the kit, but I was looking for something a bit different and why not unusual to see. The version I was looking for was some with the Nile Valley camouflage, which I found super beautiful and interesting. But while looking for decals for this version, I also found the Algerian fitter that was deployed to Egypt in 1973 war against Israel, repainted in the Nile Valley camouflage, and if you look closer you can see that the colors and patterns are the same, only swapping the sand yellow and light green colors. After deciding the marking, I started to draw some guidelines over the primer, which would be very helpful as I'm quite lazy when thinking about masking. This time I wanted to try pre-shading with complementary colors, which are the colors that provide most contrast with the camouflage colors. For the underside, the main color is a light blue, which has orange as complementary color. So I painted most of the panels with more or less orange color. On the upper surface I tried the same approach. First layer for the light green is a reddish violet, for the olive green a blue violet, and for the sand yellow a violet. Tons of work indeed. And I'm not very confident that the shading will really add to the final effect, as there are tons of other steps to come on later. With that done, I gave a good coat of automotive clear varnish and started the pre-wash. Probably this step will also be overwhelmed later on. But there is at least one great benefit on doing this now, and it's to be able to see if all panel lines are okay or if they need some corrections prior to the painting. While the wash is curing, I moved to the ordnance. First the rocket pods. They are aluminum color, but to make them a bit color varying, I painted the base with white and black. Later I used a very diluted Alclad aluminum. Yes, I know that Alclads are already very diluted, but I added more thinner and worked with several thin layers, slowly covering the base color, but not enough to kill the base color variation. Of course I could make this with different shades of aluminum, but I decided to make this way as an alternative. The same was done with the fuel tanks, only that this time I used light blue, which is the undersurface color. This will be a nice test before moving to the aircraft itself. Here you can compare the two tanks, one with the blue and another without. It seems quite interesting effect, but let's see. As you can see, I used very thin paint layers, slowly and painfully covering the underside. Here you can see that to keep the pre-shading effect you have to go slowly, otherwise you completely kill the effect. And after finishing this light blue I realized, probably too late, that in this approach you have to be more careful on when to stop to add color layers compared to the post-shading. For the underside with only one color, the final effect was quite nice, but I started to be concerned with the upper side with 3 colors. I started the upper camouflage colors with the light green, followed by the olive drab and the sand yellow as the last one. I tried to make the same thin layers. However, the workload was much greater than post-shading, for sure, as I had to paint basically exactly as the camouflage pattern is, avoiding overlapping areas and ending up with darker areas. Furthermore, as there are many colors and the pattern is also wavy, the pre-shading effect really disappeared, or at least are difficult to distinguish by overlooking it. Maybe I could give a more heavily pre-shading colors, but I think it would be much easier and controllable with post-shading. As the pre-shading effect was not working as I expected, I have to use some post-shading with lighter camouflage colors. Well, if you watched my previous videos on painting, you already know that I'm really lazy regarding masking and prefer to paint the patterns freehanded. Looking at some aircraft photos with this Nile Valley camouflage, the colors transition don't seem to be quite hard, but also not super oversprayed too. With some care, I guess it is possible to get a good result with freehand. But that only you can say if it was good enough, or should I stop being that lazy? So leave a comment. Besides revisiting the three colors to get a better contrast between them, I also noticed that the pattern was a bit off in a few spots, so I had to shift the colors half a centimeter on the starboard side. After I was satisfied, I started with some scratches around the intake and the wing's leading edges. First by really scratching the paint with a metal pin, and then painting with lighter camouflage shades and also aluminum for bigger scratches in a few spots. Later, a good coat of automotive glossy varnish was applied, and it was time for the decals. The aftermarket decals were not that good as I was expecting. They were a bit thick, and I had to use a lot of decal softener to get the decals inside the panel lines. As I was expecting, the pre-wash worked really fine on the underside light blue color, but not that well on the upper side three colors. So time for the pin wash again. I made these shades mixing oils and applying with a thin brush. I made 3 shades to avoid using the darker ones, like the wash for the olive drab, on the sand and light green. This way I don't highlight too much the panel lines, just add enough contrast to see them. I tried to not make it too messy, but yet some cleaning was necessary. With a clean napkin I cleaned the excess wash after about 30 minutes. As I said before, the decal's clear film was a bit thick, and that was really annoying me. To try to fix it, another coat of automotive varnish was applied over the decals and later sanded with a 1200 grit sand sponge, very carefully. The main landing gear legs were a bit traumatic and I couldn't record it properly, I'm sorry about that. So here are some photos of the result. It was not that tough as I was expecting, but not that easy too. At least they got nicely aligned and the kit could finally stand on its legs. And now more oil effects. I spread dark shades of black and sepia on the moving surface, and with a clean brush and stroke moves, I toned down the effect until I was satisfied with the fake shadows. I also used mix of dark brown, grey and dark blue, dark green and so on many places to simulate fuel stains and oil leaks, and also some dirt here and there. For leaks I just placed oil paint dots where I wanted, and slowly built the stains effect with a clean brush and strokes moves. Later, with a moisture brush with spirits, I removed the excess and sharpened the stains and leakage edges. For dirt and grime effects, I pre-soaked the areas with spirits, then spread the oils over and removed the excess with also moisture brush. On vertical surfaces, I used downstroke moves, and on the upper surfaces like the wing roots, I used stippling movements. I don't really like to weather aircrafts too much, unless if I have good reference pictures, so that was good enough for my taste. Then when it was dried, I airbrushed semi-matte varnish and the aircraft was finally finished. But no, I'm just kidding. I still need to remove the clear parts masks and enhance the canopy. The mirror was glued with PVA on top of the canopy. I didn't want to jeopardize it, using CA glue and stain the parts for good. Whenever possible, I use white PVA for things like this. The bond is not so strong, but it actually doesn't need to be, right? All done? Of course no. I missed what I think is the detonation cord on the canopy, as you can see here in these photos. It is quite visible, so back to masking again. I used Tamiya kabuki tape, leaving a really thin space between them, and later airbrushed Tamiya buff in thin layers. Removing this mask was also quite nerve-wracking, but in the end I guess it was worth it. Then I added a few more lines inside the canopy frame, removed the remaining masks and glued the canopy in place with PVA glue. Place the ordnance in place. And now, truly and finally, I call it good. Here are the final kit and my remarks on it and its construction. The kit was quite difficult to build, but I understand that it's an old mold from Modelsvit and that their newer kits are light years better. But I chose to face it anyway, because I really wanted this plane, and there's nothing better in the market so far. Regarding the building and painting, I must say that adding those magnets in the ordnance and the racks was a great decision. It saved me a lot of headaches on the final moments and also for transporting the kit. And thinking on other projects, it also makes possible to change the loadout whenever you want, so big thumbs up. The pre-shading, big thumbs down. It worked quite well for one color surface, but really not on multicolored ones. And also nothing that I couldn't done with post-shading. I had to try it with the pre-wash, but definitely not worth it for the tremendous load of work that I put in. Well, living and learning, right? Anyway, here's the final result. I hope you like it, and thank you for your patience waiting for this video that took a little bit longer than I was expecting. Your support is what makes me don't give up on this video making and sharing on YouTube. So again, thank you a lot, and see you in the next time. Cheers!